So, third step, translation of an algorithm to a certain programming language. Why do we need to translate our algorithm to a certain programming language? Definitely, your algorithm won't work unless you convert that into a certain programming language. Okay? This algorithm cannot be understood by any programming language, not unless you're going to convert that your pseudocode or your algorithm into the syntax of a certain programming language. Okay? So that is the most easiest part of these four steps. Okay? And last but not the least step is program testing and debugging. All right. So in this case, well, debugging should not be the most time-consuming part of the entire process. You know, most of the programmers, not exactly most of the students rather, most of the students, mas marami yung time ng pagde-debug kesa dun sa pagpo-program. Di ba? Correct me if I'm wrong. Last year, when you do programming, no? Kapag bigay ka agad ng teacher, ng professor ninyo, yung machine problem, right then and there, type na kagad ng code. Type. Tapos after that, around 15 minutes, tapos na i-type yung code, or 30 minutes, and then the entire duration of 3 hours, di ba? So minus natin from 3 hours, minus mo yung 15 minutes, or sabihin natin 30 minutes ka nag-code, and then the rest is history. No? The rest is devoted into debugging. Yan. Or in fact, dapat hindi. Okay? Bakit? Kasi once you have analyzed and follow these steps, no? Once you have identified correctly the input requirements, and you have identified the output requirements, and you have identified all the data structures or all the resources that you're going to need in creating your program, as well as you have designed your algorithm in an effective way that would really answer or give solution to the problem, definitely debugging is shouldn't be the most time consuming part. Right? So kapag ikaw ay matagal na nagde-debug kaysa nagko-code, malamang hindi mo masyadong na-analyze yung code mo. Hindi mo na-analyze yung program mo mismo, yung solution to the problem. Okay? So, we're done with the four steps. Okay? Moving on with algorithm. So, medyo mag-antay ngayon sa algorithm. So, as you can see, I have here a meal. Okay? Why meal? Kasi, they coined algorithm as a recipe for solving a problem. So, recipe. Lahat naman siguro kayo nakakita na ng recipe or yung iba nakapanood na sa YouTube ng mga recipe on how to cook sinigang, how to cook tinola, or how to cook adobo, and all of those how-tos. Okay? Or cookbook. Yeah? Sa cookbook, ano nakikita ninyo? Or even sa mga YouTube, ano yung napapanood ninyo? Very good. They start with the ingredients. Okay? So, they start with the ingredients, they specify all the required ingredients for that kind of recipe, right? Or for that meal or for that snack. Okay? So, naka-identify, halimbawa, if you're going to cook adobo, adobong ano, adobong manok, adobong baboy, or what. And then, naka-specify doon how many cups of soy sauce, how many cups of vinegar, uh, even the size of the ginger or onion or whatever is needed, all of the ingredients, lahat yon naka-specify. Di ba? Doon pa lang, umpisa pa lang kung sa YouTube, umpisa pa lang nung kanyang program, pinapakita na kaagad kung ano yung mga kakailanganing ingredients. And then, hindi lang basta ingredients, di ba? They have the exact measurement. Okay? Yung how many cups, how that be sliced, lahat yon naka-identify. Okay? So yung ingredients na yun ay katumbas natin sa atin as data structure. Okay? Na-identify mo na yung mga resources na gagamitin mo. Yun yung data structure. Ingredients equivalent to data structure. Resources is the data structure. Okay? After identifying the data structure, next is you have now to create your algorithm, your series of steps, your series of instructions. Going back to the recipe, di ba naka-identify doon yung mga or steps rather, kung paano unang gagawin para ka makapagluto ng isang recipe. Okay? Pati yung gano'ng kalakas yung oven or gano'ng kalakas yung heat temperature ng kalan or di kaya ng frying pan or whatever, di ba? Lahat yun naka-specify kung yung mga measurements niya. Right? And then, it follows specific set of steps. And once na sinunod nung tao, no, yung nakasulat dun sa cookbook, no, dun sa kanyang recipe, definitely, ang magiging output ay yun tama. Okay? Tama ko na. You're trying to cook adobo and you follow all the ingredients, you follow all those series of steps, and eventually at the end, makakaluto ka ng adobo. Okay? So, hindi naman siguro mangyayari na after following all those steps and all those ingredients, no, ay pumalpak ka pa. Okay? Pwedeng pumalpak yon kung meron kang hindi nasunod. Okay? So, ayan nga. Now, there are five. No? There are 5 criteria that we have to satisfy every time we create an algorithm. And these 5 are the following. We have the input, we have the output, definiteness, finiteness or finiteness, and effectiveness. So when we say input, these are externally supplied by the user. So external supplies definitely come from the user. So it could be 0 or more quantities. 0, remember my first problem or our first example kanina is you're going to create an algorithm that simply displays numbers from 1 to 10. So definitely, it won't ask anything from the user. Walang data manggagaling sa user. So there's no externally supplied. So 0 quantity of an externally supplied. Right? Although there are some cases that it could have more than one. Right? So one or many externally supplied input coming from the user. So, ibig sabihin, kunwari, nilagay mo doon, enter your name, enter your gender, enter your address. So, definitely, we have there 3 external inputs. External supplied, and they're called inputs. Okay? And then next, we have another criteria is the output. So, when we say output, it should have at least one quantity that has been processed. Okay? Definitely, when we create programs, well, sinabi ko kanina, algorithms or programs in the long run, no, they are created because we want to solve a specific problem. So that is a solution to a problem. So that means it has something that has been processed. Okay? Kahit isa, dapat meron siyang ma-process. Meron siyang maging output. Okay? So, one criteria of an algorithm is the output. So it should have at least one quantity processed. And then third, based on sa ating example kanina, no? Create an algorithm that will display numbers from 1 to 10. So definitely, ang magiging output niya ay yung values. Pero, isang set of values lang yon na ang ma-display ay yung values na 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hanggang 10. Alright? And then third is definiteness. So when we say definiteness, ayan, definite, specific. Ibig sabihin, sabi niya rito, every time an algorithm is presented with the same input data, the same result should be obtained. Okay. Example, ito lagi ito nangyayari sa lab class. labs, no? Sa laboratory classes, no? Let us say, the first time you run your program, okay? Uh, Input halimbawa ay 5, and then output will be 25. So that means parang ini-square niya yung value ng, ang ginagawa ng program is simply ini-square niya yung input number. Okay? The second time around, same program, the second time around that it is executed, however, the same input, ang kanyang input, kunwari 5, input niya pa rin ay 5. Dapat, ang lalabas, 25 pa rin. So, kahit ilang beses na-execute yung program na yon or yung algorithm na yon, dapat same pa rin. Kung same yung input data mo, dapat same pa rin na maging result. Hindi pwedeng, kunwari, yung first run is 5, tapos naging 25 yung output. The second time na nirun yung program, same yung input, kunwari 5, and then ang naging output is 10. Okay, there's something wrong. Okay, may problema. Kaya, kapag sinasabi ng mga estudyante, no? Ito yung lagi nangyayari, no? Kapag magpapacheck na yung estudyante, no? Sasabihin sa akin, or sasabihin sa mga professor, ma'am, kanina, nung niran ko yan, tama naman po eh. Tama yung input ko, tama rin yung naging output. Bakit sa inyo, iba na? So, hindi pwedeng excuse yun. Because, yun nga, if ever na nagkaroon ng ganong situation, that means there's something wrong with your algorithm. There's something wrong with your instructions. Okay? Kaya hindi naging consistent. Hindi naging definite yung kanyang values. Okay? So, lagi niyo yung tatandaan. And then, sabi nga, part pa rin ng definiteness, every algorithm, it must follow a specific sequence of instructions. So, definite yung kanyang sequencing. Okay? Hindi pwedeng yung first run, ang steps na ginagawa ay 1, 2, 3. Right? Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yan yung series of steps. Tapos, the second time around na niran yung program, ang naging execution niya ay 1, 3, 2, 5, 4. Hindi pwedeng ganun. Okay? So, dapat it follows a definite sequence. Okay? And then, moving on with the fourth criteria is finiteness or finiteness. Okay? So, I think kaninang sinabi ko pa rin, no? If we trace out the instructions of the algorithm for all cases, no? The algorithm will terminate or terminates after a finite number of steps. Ito yung hindi pwedeng nakahang lang. Okay? Hindi pwedeng nakahang lahat. Dapat merong ending. Every beginning, there is an end. Every start, there is a stop. Okay? So, even sa program, even sa algorithm, hindi pwedeng hang. Okay? Hindi mo alam kung ano na nangyari. Okay? Dapat, meron siyang beginning at meron siyang end. Finite number of steps. Okay? And then last, we have the effectiveness. So this is one of the most important, no? The effectiveness of an algorithm could be measured once the algorithm performed what it is supposed to do. Okay? Hindi pwede na. In creating algorithms or in creating programs, dapat masasabi mo effective yung program mo or masasabi mo effective yung algorithm mo if it has done what it is supposed to do. Okay? Kunwari, ang problem is you're going to, balikan natin kauna-unahan nating example. Create an algorithm that will display numbers from 1 to 10. Okay? And then, ang ginawa mo, or nangyari dun sa program mo or sa algorithm mo, ang na-display niya lang ay 1 to 5. Hindi pa rin pwede yan. Hindi pa rin siya effective. Right? Ma'am, nakapag-display naman. 1 to 5 nga lang. Pero, ang problem is, kailangan ang gawa mong solusyon ay makapag-display ng 1 to 10. So, hindi pwede yung 1 to 5. Alright? So, dapat definite ka. Dapat exact or accurate din yung magiging output mo. Doon natin masasabi, effective yung ginawa mong program. Effective yung ginawa mong algorithm. Okay? Otherwise, hindi pa rin siya. Okay? Kaya siguro, hindi siguro, no? Kaya, kung mapapansin ninyo, whenever your professors rate you or score your work, okay, merong mga differences. Yeah? Yung isa, halimbawa, gumamit ng 10 variables. Isang problem lang isang problem set. Yung isa gumamit ng 10 variables. yung isa gumamit lang ng 5 variables at yung isa ay gumamit lang ng 2 variables. So definitely, sinong mas efficient doon? Okay? Siyempre, yung mas kakaunti, yung resources na ginamit. Yung 2 variables lang ang ginamit. Mas efficient yung program niya. Okay? Plus the fact na nagawa yung dapat niyang gawin. Effective yung kanyang program. So, mas mataas ang score ng lesser yung resources compared dun sa marami yung resources na ginamit. Okay? Do you follow? So now you understand why your professors give you different grades or different scores because of those criteria. Okay? Sabihin nyo, ma'am, nakapag-display naman eh. But, especially kapag programming, no? Tinitingnan natin yung mismong code ninyo. Alright? So if you have questions, so just send a message and I will answer all those questions. Okay? Next, we have here a sample algorithm, no? To get the sum of positive and inputted integers. Okay? So what's the problem? The problem is we're going to compute the sum of n inputted number, where n is a positive integer. So it is an integer. Let me have my annotation. Okay. So we have here series of steps. We have 1 to 8. Okay? First criteria. Titingnan natin kung talagang may input, may output, definite ba siya, finite ba siya, and effective ba siya. Okay? So, tingnan natin itong algorithm na to if it follows the 5 criteria. So, first, the problem is compute the sum of n inputted number. Okay. So, meron ba tayong hihingin sa user? Very good. Meron tayong hihingin yung n. Okay? Ano yung value ng n? So, first step, input a positive number of integers to add. So, this is an algorithm. An algorithm could be English-like statements or it could be a graphical representation. Graphical representation is the flowchart. Okay? Yung ginawa niyo ng first year kayo. Okay? So, textual representation, we have this algorithm. Okay? So, you're going to input a positive number of integers to add. Okay? And name that number as n. So, ibig sabihin, yung input ni user ay may store sa n. So, parang ba kung kunwari, meron tayong output. Let's have the output. Kunwari, sa output niya, hihingi tayo sa user. No? Enter a number. Kunwari, ito yung sa program, no? So, kunwari, in-input ng number ay 5. Okay? So, yung 5 na to, siya ang magiging n. Okay. So, sa ating memory, meron tayong variable named n. Okay? So, meron tayong variable n. Ito yung memory, ito yung output. Okay? So, sa n, nag-input tayo ng 5. Okay? So, yung value na 5, may store kay n. Okay? Ito yan, yung first step. And then, sabi niya, anong kailangan natin? May output ba? Anong output niya? Okay? Ang output niya, sa process natin, dapat, sa output, okay, kapag nag-input siya ng number 5, sabi niya, compute the sum of n inputted number. So that means, kung 5 siya, ang i-add niya, ang magiging output niya would be the sum of 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. Kasi 5 yung number na nilagay natin. Right? So, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 is ilan? Okay. So, 5, 10, 15. Dapat, ang output niya, dito. Sum of 5 numbers is 15. Parang ganyan siya sa program, no? Kapag in-execute siya. So, paano natin yan ma-achieve? Right? Meron, on the process, nakita nyo kanina, nilagay ko yung values na 1 to 10. Ito. 1 to 5. 1 plus 2, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. So, that means, ito, tayo ng tools. Ibig sabihin, yung 1, i-add ko sa 2. Yung 2, i-add ko kay 3. So, ito magiging 3. Yung 3, i-add ko kay 3. So, magiging 6. Yung 6, i-add ko kay 4. Magiging 10. At yung 10, i-add ko kay 5. Magiging 15. Right? So, may paulit-ulit na nangyayari. Diba? Paulit-ulit siyang nag-a-add. Ayun. So, kung meron paulit-ulit, ibig sabihin, kailangan nating magbilang. Hanggang ilang beses siyang paulit-ulit na mag-a-add. Right? That's why we need to set up a counter representing the number of integers that have been read. Okay? And name it count. Right? So, sorry. May nakalimutan akong isa. Okay? So, pag input niya ng 5, no, enter a number. So, kunwari, nilagay niya dyan 5. Dapat, hihingi siya ng number 1. Yan. Number 2. Ng 5 numbers. Number 3. Number 4. And number 5. Okay? Hihingi siya ng 5 numbers. Bago yung sum of, but eto muna. Okay? Para makita nyo. So, kunwari, 1, 2, actually, pwede namang iba-ibang values yan. Para lang madaling mag-add. Kaya, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? And then, after dyan, the sum of 5 numbers is, kunwari, 15. Okay? Ganyan siya. So, ma'am, kung 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, so definitely, iba yung magiging sum. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, iba itong mga values na to. At ito, yung number ng ilan yung hihingin mo, will depend kung ano yung in-input natin dito. Okay? Sorry nag-overlap. So, natin. Overlap siya. So, number 1, input number 1. Okay. Input number. Okay, siya. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, mag-input tayo ng 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Tapos, sasabihin niya, the sum of 5 numbers is 15. So, kapag ginawa niya ditong 6, definitely, hingi siya ng 6 numbers. Kung nilagay niya dito ay 10, hingi siya ng 10 numbers. Okay? So, that depends dun sa in-input niyang first number. Okay? Now, in that case, kaya kailangan natin ng counter. Counter that will read how many numbers that have been read. Okay? Ilan yung numbers na kanyang nabasa. Kaya, we set up a counter representing the number of integers that have been read. And we name it as count. So, in our memory, apart from n, we have variable count. we have now two variables, the n and the count. Plus, we will have another more, right? And then, sabi niya, set the value of count to 0. Okay. Kasi wala pa naman siya nabasa. Kaya we could set it to 0. Well, that depends on the algorithm that you're going to use. Okay? Sa akin naman kasi, kaya yung 0 kasi, yung aking condition dito, if it is equal to n. Okay? And then next, so we have identified the input. Okay? Ang input natin is a positive integer. Yun yung n. Okay? Yun yung n. Ito yung input. Okay? While the output is the sum of n inputted number. So we have the input, the output. Okay? Next, titignan natin kung definite siya. Pero, simulate natin itong algorithm. Okay? Para malaman natin kung definite, finite, and effective. Okay? So, after naming it as count, we set the count to 0, and then we assign a variable named sum. Why do we have to assign a variable named sum? To store, very good, to store the output. Okay? So, sum is initially 0. Ma'am, bakit ganun? Kasi diba, remember on our process, we have to add yung first number with the second number inputted. And we have to store this. So, ito ngayon yung magiging sum. Okay? Yung 3 plus 3 is 6. So, yung 6 magiging sum ulit. Then, 6 plus 4 magiging 10. Yung 10, yun yung sum ulit. And then, we have 10 plus 5, magiging 15, sum ulit. Okay. So, pare-parehas na sum. Yes. So, sum would hold the value of the added numbers. Okay? So, initially, our sum is 0. Okay? And then, if count is equal to n, is our count equals to n? No. Okay? If we have this kind of context, if count equals n, comma, display the value of sum and exit. Otherwise, increment count by 1. So, that means, if this is true, ito yung gagawin. Yung next statement will be executed. Otherwise, kapag naging false yung statement, ito yung kanyang i-execute. Okay. Now, my condition is, if count is equal to n, is count equals n? Okay. No, they're not equal, right? So, if this is not equal, so tayo sa otherwise. Otherwise, increment count by 1. So, count magiging 1. And then next step, sabi niya, step 7, input a number and name it A. So, input a number, ito yun. Input a number and name it A. So, ito, yung in-input ni user, ito ang magiging A. Okay? Ito yung N kanina. And then, we have a variable named A. Okay? So, A now has a value of 1. Okay. Add the value of A to sum. 1, ito yun. Okay. We have 1 plus 0 is 1. After adding, ano mangyayari? Store the result to sum. So, 1. Tama naman, di ba? So, initially, ang value ng sum natin ay 0. Kaya 0 plus 1 is 1. Palang yun. And then, on step 8, nakita ninyo, return to step 6. Return to step 6. So, this means, ito ay nakaloop. Ito yung paulit-ulit na gagawin. Okay? Now, step 6. Again, if count equals n. Is count equals n? 1? 1 equals 5? False. So, otherwise, increment count by 1. So, magiging 2. Again, next, input a number and name it A. Yun. And name it A. Okay? Pero isang beses ka lang mag-a-assign ng variable A. Okay? I-assign mo lang yung value na 2 kay A. Yan. Add the value of A to sum. So, 2 plus 1 is 3. Then, store the result to sum. Okay? And then, return to step 6. Again, count equals n. False. So, increment count by 1. And then input again a number and assign it to A. Okay? And then add the value of A to sum. So 3 plus 3 is 6, and then store it to sum. Again, return to step 6. If n is equal to, if count, equals to n. So 3 equals 5, false. Again, increment count by 1. And then input a number, and name it A. So we have 4. Add the value of A to sum. So we add it, that is 10, and store the value to sum. Store the result to sum. And then again, return to step 6. After returning to step 6, again, it will ask, is 4 equals 5? Again, false, so increment count by 1, so magiging 5. And then, input a number, that number will be assigned to A. And then, we have to add the value of A to sum and store the result to sum. So we have 15, okay? And then return to step 6. Return to step 6, count equals n. Is 5 equals 5? True. So if it is true, execute natin yung kanyang true value. So display the value of sum and exit. Display the value of sum, which is 15. Ayun yung 15. And then exit. Okay. So yun meron tayong input, na-identify natin yung ating magiging output. Okay? At dito yung lalabas. Display the value of sum. So we have identified the output. And then third, is it definite? Yes, we follow a definite number of steps. Okay? And then on step 8, that's return to step 6. But definite yan, in number of steps. Okay? And then after that, finite pa. Finite, ibig sabihin it has start and it has end. Actually, hindi siya dito nag-end sa step 8. Recursive to. Iterative siya. Pero, mag-exit lang siya if na-satisfy itong condition. So, finite pa rin. End, exit. So, that means, meron pa rin ending. Okay? So, finite pa rin siya. And last criteria is effective. Nagawa ba ng algorithm yung dapat niyang gawin? Okay. Ang problem is, compute the sum of n inputted number. Okay? Na-compute niya ba yung sum of n inputted numbers? Yes. So, our algorithm is effective. So, our algorithm follows the six basic steps. No? 5 criteria. Sorry, we have the 5 criteria. Satisfy the 5 criteria. Okay? Question. Very good. Done. Okay. So for your activity, you're going to write an algorithm that will compute the average of n inputted integers. It is like the one that we have done, okay? Just like our example. However, we're going instead of simply computing for the sum, you're going to compute for the average of n numbers. So yung n numbers that would be inputted by the user. Okay? So almost the same. Pero lang yung, syempre, iba yung pagko-compute ng average dun sa sum lang. Okay? So, that ends our class. That ends our activity. We'll have our activity next time. Okay? We're going to concentrate now, next meeting, on the running time analysis. Okay? Thank you and God bless.